like we were gonna go ahead and plan to go longer on the 30th. And then it looks like the HC survey presentation will be first, and then we'll have a little break. And then counter proposals from you folks. And then financials, and then we'll have a break, lunch break and caucus for about an hour, and then come back to share our article and counter proposals. Do we need to make any adjustments to the schedule today, Debbie?
Sorry, no, we don't.
Great. All right, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you guys to share the survey.
Can you see the slideshow? Okay.
So am I doing the presentation? Or is that you, Debbie?
No, actually, I'm going to let Kira do it.
Okay, cool. Sorry, Kira.
Wait, you want me to speak about this?
Well,
Okay,
yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah, we kind of discussed it sooner. I guess I just
Okay.
assumed you were going to go ahead and go forth with it. So I think you'd be a good presenter on this.
Okay, so we'll go back to slide 1 then. This is a survey that we sent out to our, not just our members, but all classified staff. So the responses that you're going to see on this survey are from a variety of our staff. And here's our first question. How satisfied are you working for HSD? Do you feel appreciated and valued? So you can see kind of the breakdown here from 5 being, I feel very appreciated, I feel very satisfied, 1 being, I feel very unsatisfied, unappreciated. So you see a lot of our responses are somewhere in the middle, about 2 to 4, I would say, is the majority of what our responses were here on this slide. And we'll send a copy of this after. Next, we have, do you think the last financial counter from the district was fair? We have yes, no, and absolutely not. So that skewed our results a little bit, but you see that the majority of our respondents felt that the last offer was unfair.
And we're certain they were working from the most recent one that Michelle had presented just the last time we met.
Absolutely, that one.
Okay, so this is where I think our survey was pretty difficult for us as a team to look over the results that we received, but this was one of our questions. Have you had to decide whether to pay a bill or put food on your table? And you see that 42.3% of our respondents said yes, they had to decide between bills and food for their family. Next, have you experienced housing instability while you were employed at HSD? And almost 25% of our respondents said yes, they had experienced housing instability while employed at HSD. Are you currently experiencing houselessness? So thankfully that was a smaller number, but you still see that 3% of our respondents are currently houseless. And I wanted to mention with this slide too, that I heard feedback from some of our members that they had difficulty responding to this question because of the way that we worded it. So there were members who, acknowledge, okay, I live, with family, or I live in a trailer, or whatever, and they weren't sure whether or not that would qualify as houselessness. So the numbers might be a little bit higher than what you see represented here. Have you been on state assistance at any time working for HSD? Again, almost a quarter of the respondents said yes, they'd been on state assistance. Do you currently qualify for state assistance? And we had 11.2 respondents say yes, they qualify for state assistance. Do you think you are paid a livable wage? And this was almost 90% of our members replied no, or sorry, not our members, 90% of classified that responded said no. Are you the sole provider for your family? Almost 36% of our members are or respondents are the sole providers for their families. Do you work more than one job? So we had a little over 40% of respondents say that they needed to work more than one job. It looks like this is a repeat of an earlier slide, so I'm going to skip past that. Have you ever thought of leaving the district? So we had yes, no, maybe. You can see overwhelmingly the respondents said that they either had considered it or they said either yes or maybe. It was, I want to say 81%. We'll get to that a little bit later. Do you feel valued as an HSD employee? And again, this, Debbie can correct me on the exact dates of when this survey went out, but this was a recent survey. So within the past month, is that correct, Debbie, that we've gotten our responses?
I guess.
Yeah.
That's good.
So about 64% saying no, they did not feel valued as an HSD employee. Okay, and so now we're going to move into some comments that we received, and I tried to choose, we had a lot of respondents and a lot of comments. I tried to choose some that were kind of representative for each. So we have a lot more comments than the ones that we're going to share, but they just kind of represent themes that we found in the data. So again, out of 431 respondents, 353, which is 81%, said that they had considered leaving HSD. 56% of those, which is 200 respondents, listed low wages as a primary reason they had considered leaving the district. So I'm just going to read out some of these comments. I've been with the district for 20 plus years and I love what I do. I do not like that the people who are just starting make almost as much as me because I am stepped out. My job has a lot of social demands for little monetary compensation. I've tried to financially plan for living on my own, and the income I get from my classified job with the Hillsborough School District would not be enough for me to support even just myself. I love my job, feel valued by the team I work with, but I'm struggling to support my family on such little income. I don't make enough money to survive. I cannot pay my bills. I do not make enough money to even pay my rent. This was kind of a common theme, people talking about family members who made more at other jobs. So my husband, who pumps gas for a living, makes more money than I do, and his job is much easier. Starting out as a building-based sub at $20 an hour, I was very excited to get hired by HSD, of course, needing the benefits. I nearly considered not taking the position because of the $1.60 per hour pay cut. I'm considering leaving because of pay. My daughter works at Subway and makes just as much money as I do. I'm underpaid for my degree and work. Other employees have better wages or benefits. I am tired of not feeling appreciated and not being heard regarding the necessity of wage increases and a decent COLA. So many of us classifieds wouldn't have to work 2 jobs and still struggle financially. We are not compensated in accordance with the expectations and the work that is required to best serve our students. Many classified staff have discussed not returning to HSD in the coming years. And then this one, classified work as hard as anyone else in the building, but earn the least. Be honest here and ask yourself, can the school building run without a front office staff, a kitchen staff, custodial staff, assistants? The answer is no. So why should we not earn a living wage? So those were comments about pay. We're going to move on. 18% of respondents wrote about feeling undervalued or unappreciated or disrespected. And I want to clarify that this was from our comments, this happened both at the job site level and also they felt at the district level. So I'm going to read some comments that are representative of each. I feel our word is not being heard, and we are assigned tasks that we are not comfortable with, even though we have shared why. It feels like we're forced to do it. I'm here for the students, not myself. We are expendable and just bodies to the district, not human beings, and secondary to teachers, not equal. I think they don't value long-term experience and passion. I don't even have a desk or chair. Sorry, that one gets me. I feel that as an SEA, I was replaceable. No one knows my name. I was only a number. I don't do this job for the money, but as an employee and educator, I should feel valued. Providing professional development and time for me to meet with teachers to collaborate about students' behaviors, academics, and supports enables us to work as a team to provide the best environment for all of the students we work with. When we're excluded from that process, it sends the message that our work is not valuable and we are replaceable. I really like my job and the coworkers in my department, but I struggle with how top-heavy we are in this district and how that level does not seem to value the work classified staff does. I do feel valued here at school, but not from those making the big bucks. I felt like leaving many times because of not being respected and feeling valued by my superiors and or coworkers, licensed staff, and most importantly, because of the salary we're getting for the kind of work that I have to do. So 13% of respondents mentioned an unsustainable workload or significant job-related stress. So here are a few comments from that category. I've considered leaving because of the lack of support and help for the elementary office staff. They just keep adding work for us and we do not have enough help. I feel like leaving because we do not have enough help to cover other staff or departments. My work then falls behind because I'm used in another department. My pay stays the same. I feel stretched out as far as possible and not rewarded. I considered leaving for more money, but not just that. The SPED secretary job is not enough hours. There's no way this job can be done in the amount of hours allotted. More aides need to be hired. 6% wrote about not receiving adequate support or training, either from their buildings or from district administrators. So here are some comments about that. I've only been here for this school year and already great people I met are looking to move because they're not supported by the administration very well. Providing professional development and more relevant training opportunities for growth show me that what I do is valuable. Without that, it sends the message that our work is not valued. The amount of work I was expected to do was not fair for what I was being paid at the time. There was a lack of training for the position as well. This made it incredibly stressful. I considered leaving because of the lack of training from the district, not my building. When I was hired, I had to pay over $100 for my background and HQ assessment. It doesn't seem equitable to ask a person making less than $20,000 a year to pay for their onboarding paperwork. 5% of our respondents mentioned specifically moving to other districts. And here's what they had to say about that. As much as I love my job, the people I work with, and the opportunity to have time off during the year when my kids have time off, I've considered applying for other jobs at other districts where I would have the possibility of earning a higher wage. HSD doesn't offer the same level of personal days and family sick leave as other districts. Beaverton School District pays more and they got a $500 bonus on top of their increase this year. So our last 13% of these responses were kind of on a variety of topics. So I'll just read a few more comments on each of these. So some mentioned a lack of career growth opportunities or professional development opportunities. I'm afraid I will be forced to leave my job at some point in order to finish my schooling. Even with a bachelor's degree, there is no room for growth. I'm stuck. I considered leaving because I want to grow professionally. Some staff mentioned concerns about COVID-19. I feel my health and safety has not always been a priority for the district. It was very hurtful to be putting ourselves on the front line and being made to feel like what we were doing wasn't enough. Some mentioned issues with supervisors. Those, I only have one here that I chose to share, but it just said, I do not feel supported by management. I do not feel we were all treated the same. They have favorites. And then a lot of staff mentioned the pressure caused by the recent staff shortages. So too little pay for too much work. Since we're understaffed as a district, I'm having to cover roles that are not relevant to mine. The staff shortages make the working conditions horrible, and I often feel I'm contributing to a bad situation by staying. I'm doing licensed jobs for the pay of a classified. It is hard to see some of the specialists in my building subbing for other teachers and receiving additional pay as a sub when any classified helps with any other job or is moved from EA to SEA because someone is absent. HSD doesn't pay this person any extra pay. Some other things that were mentioned were insurance or other benefits that they felt were insufficient. Some people were close to retirement age and considering retiring early. There were policies on leave or vacation time that people were unsatisfied with, and then some concerns about student behavior. I've thought about leaving the district because I don't feel that the wage I make now is worth some of the violent behaviors I have to work with. I was assaulted by a second grader and nothing was done. I watched a class cause another staff member to cry yesterday and nothing was done. Oops, and I'm going to stop right there because that other part is for later.
Thank you, Kira.
Yeah, thanks, Kira. That was well done.
What percent of the 430 respondents are the total staff? Like what percentage of total staff is that?
Well, I think it's what, 1200-ish? Is that right?
Sounds right.
Or is it 15? So it's, it is what it is. It's not a scientific survey.
Sure.
So 430 respondents for any union survey, I think is, even out of 1200 or 1500 is pretty good. But
Do
it's
we
not
know
like
what percentage of the, yeah, I got you. And do you know what percentage of the 430 are 10-month and which one are full year?
I'm not actually sure. It's probably something we could break out.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, well, we didn't collect any personal information on this, so that's going to be
Okay.
more difficult. That would have to be other, yeah, we wanted this to be totally anonymous so that they can speak their minds without any fear of any repercussions.
Yeah, if you looked at the breakdown between, the different kind of groups, 12-month, 10-month, in general for classified, you'd get a sense of what the respondents were too. Yeah, and then there's this sort of like the beginning of it is sort of that, qualitative data quantitative data that's, putting numbers on what people's viewpoints are. And then, but I often find that like kind of qualitative, people just answering, responding to open-ended questions is often almost the most valuable data you get out of a survey like that. Okay, cool. So had we scheduled a break now?
Yeah, I think that's on the agenda, although, I mean, I guess I leave it to you guys because I think the next thing on the agenda would be you presenting counter proposals. So if you needed a break to sort of get all that stuff geared up and ready to go, that's totally fine. But I don't know otherwise. I mean, I'm kind of looking at you, Connor. I don't know that our team needs a break if you were ready, but again, kind of your show. So I'll let you take that.
I think team, we're ready, right?
Okay, great.
So I saw that you guys had us down for, what was it? Holidays, 16, right?
Article 13.
13. So we've kind of gone back and forth on this one quite a lot. And I think we're ready to TA it. based on the last management proposal. It's always a little tricky, you know, Juneteenth, we felt like wasn't going to be impacting that many people. I guess financially, we understand a little bit more why the day after Thanksgiving is a little trickier for you guys, because it certainly would equal more money. But we're sort of willing to give up on these ideas. I guess the only thing we would really say about this is that, like, is when we're talking money, to kind of remember that we've taken this out of the equation. You know, and there was a kind of a line item in our costing that talked about the cost of holidays. I know it's not an enormous cost, but it was, you know, fairly significant, and we just want to make sure that Michelle kind of, you know, takes that out, and that, you know, we still are kind of holding on to that value. I mean, the Friday after Thanksgiving, I think, you know, is a little bit hard, just because it's everyone's working. You know, and it feels a lot unfair to the people who, you know, who aren't 12-month. But in the interest of kind of moving forward, we're willing to kind of give up on these and TA this.
Okay, great. Those were the only things in that article, correct? Was the sections A and B?
Yes. Well, at least I think so. At least I forget if there was stuff down here that we agreed on.
I don't
think so.
Hannah's saying no. So yeah, I don't think we opened this one, and yours changes were only up there in A and B.
Yeah, I don't see anything down below that.
I agree with Hannah. We didn't.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, good to appreciate that movement.
Mhm.
And definitely good to get another one TA'd. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Okay. So I guess we're on to 16 now. So again, on all these, I feel like we're really getting down to brass tacks for these, you know, for these concepts. We've smacked them back and forth quite a bit. I guess what we're asking for now is we're agreeing to a fair amount of, you know, it looks like there's a lot of crossouts up top. You know, what we're saying now is, you know, because I think you guys had struck a fair amount of that and said, you know, the reclassification request must first be sent to all members of the classification committee to determine if it meets the definition of reclassification based on predetermined requirements. We're agreeing with that overall concept. We think that this is good movement. You know, it gets at our sort of, you know, main issue, which felt like one side could sort of act as a gatekeeper for reclass requests. And we appreciate the kind of willingness to, you know, to probably do some more time in this committee. But we feel like it's important. I also think that, you know, that the committee will probably be able to fairly quickly, you know, see if a reclassification request has merit. You know, and I think you'll find that the union is a partner in that. But the one thing we wanted to add is on the end of that sentence is set forth by the committee. And then we wanted to add, the committee will meet within 3 months of the ratification of this contract to formulate the predetermined requirements. It still felt like, you know, it's sort of alluding to predetermined requirements, which aren't really entirely solidified. So we wanted the committee to sort of like convene and get that ironed out in the near term. Doesn't need to be 3 months from now. I mean, we could do it next month. You know, but to just say, hey, this work is we're gonna be doing it, you know, in the near future. So that, because I think once we have those predeterminations set down, then, like I said, I think that, you know, the work of the committee should be fairly smooth. So I think that that's the only real change. It's always a little tricky when there's a lot of crossouts, but Yep.
Okay, thank you. I'm pretty clear on that. Anybody, district team, you guys, especially side A, do you have questions on that piece?
No, no questions. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I feel like also like we're either there or really close on this one. So we'll talk about it in caucus, but also seems like we hopefully will be able to check this one off today.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. All right, so Article 20, everyone's favorite article.
It's Carol's favorite article, maybe.
Carol's favorite. Carol
And
and Debbie.
Carol and Debbie, maybe it's
Carol
their
and
favorite.
Debbie's. Yeah. Lori and Denise are also big fans. Okay, so this one, like we've tried to like, you know, make various proposals that have like, you know, put some sort of limit on the number of summer trips that could be done. You know, we went from 12 to 4, and then we countered with just providing some documentation about the number of drivers who have been sort of offered and declined. And I you know, it's still hard to give up on that, because like part of our problem is that, you know, I mean, on the one hand, we don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, you know, and I think that it hasn't been that huge of an issue in the past. But last year, like we've discussed quite a bit, you know, was pretty pronounced as a different year with lots and lots of charter buses. We've done a little research. We don't think that this is a difficult ask, but we just want to be able to track like how, you know, and I think that it's also, you know, I think that we also recognize that there's some added difficulty with transportation tracking this, because sometimes it doesn't necessarily go through transportation, which we feel is problematic. But what we're asking for right now is basically like to just tell us the number of all charter buses that are utilized during the summer month. You know, and we feel like those reports are already kind of generated. So we don't feel like this is a huge burden to be placed on Carol or transportation. But we'd be curious what you guys think. This would just allow us to like have a finger on the pulse, get a sense of how big of a problem this is, you know, and maybe it's a concept we'll bring back at a different year. You know, if we sort of see that like, hey, it, you know, instead of it, these some, you know, maybe this summer and last summer being outliers, maybe it's a little more becoming the norm. We just want some sort of a sense of how much these charters are being utilized in the summer. We understand that like the district, you know, is sort of able to do it outside of the contract, and you guys seem very hesitant to want to, you know, want to have these things tied up in the contract for the summer. But we just like to know, you know, how much this is happening.
So I have a question, and then I don't know if Carol does. So I'd want to make sure that we were clear on what, for purposes of the summer, what does it mean when we say charter buses? So is it any time students are transported not utilizing a regular district driver, that a charter bus? And I probably don't know enough about the summer driving. My recollection was that sometimes it was third party, but then sometimes maybe our own like internal folks were driving people in smaller vehicles or something like that. Is that correct? Kana or Saide or Carol? Somebody help me there.
I would defer to Carol.
You out there, Carol?
When I think of a charter, I think of like an outside contractor. So it could be like a motor coach, like the big ones, like, like Greyhound buses, a charter bus. One of our approved vendors also, they no longer have charter buses, they have school buses. They've kind of changed their industry, so it could be a school bus. Yes, that is correct. That's what I say, charter. That's what I'm thinking of.
The use of an outside contractor for driving purposes.
Yes.
Does that match with what you guys were thinking when you use the term charter buses?
I believe so. Debbie?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. Anytime that, the transportation staff is not driving. I know that there's little like tennis groups, or like if there's maybe 2 or 3 people driving, with one of those coaches that have an approved license to transport a few kids. I understand that part of it. And for me, I don't consider that really a charter, but yeah, I agree with Carol. It's anybody outside of our transportation employees that are driving, period, whether it's in a school bus or a big, nice charter bus.
Okay.
Yeah. Would it be correct to say that it's like anytime that it's like a trip that could possibly involve a HSD driver, like the kind of trips that you might look at the list of people who have volunteered in the summer and tried to see if they were available for those trips, and then they weren't, and then it went to a charter, a third party driver. That to me seems like kind of what we're after, right? Is that correct, Debbie?
Yeah.
Are you saying like when we have to pay for that? So that David said whenever somebody drives and it's not a district employee, period. So when parents are asked to get, the few kids on the golf team over to the golf course, is that considered an opportunity for a driver that a parent did? And we have to track that as well?
Well, not as a parent. Like if a parent just like, if I'm taking my kids to practice and I've got 3 kids here that are on the team, in my neighborhood, and I haul them over there. No, of course that's not going to count. But like,
yeah, not necessarily practice, but with
it
the
doesn't matter
shortage of drivers, we've had to ask parents to take students to competitions.
Right, and there's charters that are also paid outside the, that are paid for by, let's say, band,
Right,
for their own charter bus. That's their choice not to use, HSD transportation. So it's their funding. It's not harming, it's not harming our drivers per se if they, choose to go that route. So
so when we say anytime a non-district driver is driving, period, that's not, so I think we probably need, what's the article is still open for definitions? Do we need a definition for charter buses?
Oh.
maybe I think we need to fine tune it a little bit, because I think Carol's idea and mine are the same on the charter buses. I believe she's got it down. I think if Lori, do you have anything else you'd like to add on there, since you're part of it too?
Yeah, or Denise.
Or Denise. I think, yeah. Yeah. Hello?
No, I don't. I think that Carol's definition fits.
Okay.
And it talks like in the article about, privately funded trips, and those pretty clearly are kind of like outside of even what we're talking about.
Yeah, I think that we may try and fine tune that language a little bit.
We figured.
Yeah, just to make sure we're all clear on what we're doing.
Denise has her hand raised.
Oh, sorry, Denise.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to mention that in my particular position, I work with Carol on charter buses and tracking that information. And so I think it's really important that all our licensed and administrative staff know that even in the summer, they do need to put in those charter bus trips so that we have documentation on that and we can follow it up. Sometimes it's hard to know what's happening if people aren't following the procedures in place. So I'll try to do a better job of making sure that is adequately provided for everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Denise. I know that was a major concern of ours for last summer. And it seemed like Carol kind of shared that concern too, of feeling like there was stuff going on that, you know, that wasn't going over her past her desk. You know, so yeah,
I
that
think
seems
some
like
of that was reaction to the sense of urgency of the $200 million summer program
Yep.
coming in so late. I mean, at least it's 150 million this year, but at least we already know now. So I think that will help us prepare. And for what it's worth, I thought, well, one guy's opinion, I brought it to the superintendent that the idea of maybe a few 12-month drivers wasn't a bad idea. So I don't know if he's talked to you about that yet, Carol, but it might be coming your way because it feels like that might be a thing we should do.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. That was an idea we liked. And if the districts.
Yeah, and actually I didn't know that from the superintendent, but I've already been looking into an 11-month position to tweak it back and forth, just because it gives us more options. But there's still, I need to do a little more research yet. I just want to be sure that if we do it, we get it right going out of the gate.
Why start now, Carol? We never get it right going out of the gate.
Well, we do try though. I mean, you got to give us an A for effort, but yeah.
We do pretty doggone good.
But again, I feel like we're not that far away on this one.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I don't have any more questions. So, but I agree. We'll probably chew this one over a little bit in caucus and see if we want to refine it. But I agree with you that I think we're getting fairly close on this article as well.
All right, great. What else do we have? 21, right?
Yes, 21.
Okay, again, I think we're very close on this. I think that the only real change we wanted to make was under C. And it was under C1. It just seemed like it was a lot of layers of approval. You know, because it's approval of supervisor and it says and or human resources. But we feel like if it's an actual leave request, that it would automatically go to HR. You know, whereas if it's minor flexing, that could just be a communication with the supervisor. And we wanted to make it clear both to the people who might want to take advantage of this, but also to, you know, to supervisors. And it felt kind of redundant and sort of like, you know, maybe slightly heavy-handed to sort of say, you know, I mean, we appreciate your guys' movement in terms of making it more of an open, you know, taking out all the different definitions of what this is and making it sort of open. But considering that it's approval of the supervisor and those leave requests would already go to HR. So we feel like that's kind of already implied. And then including coverage and then documentation. We feel like that there's a lot there. You know, and if somebody is like requesting a fair amount of time off, like it's going to go to human resources anyway. So we thought that, you know, kind of made a little more sense, a little bit less redundant, and a little more clear. And I think that that's it.
Yeah, on that last piece, you know, I mean, I guess I wouldn't want there to be any confusion in the sense that I don't even know if we need to say and or human resources in there because I mean, the district's going to have its own internal processes, right? And the district could send a memo to all supervisors saying, before you approve any request of this sort, you need to contact human resources. And I think that would be kind of our business, right? I mean, that would be how we choose to internally conduct business. So I don't know that we need it in the contract. I think that HR probably would develop kind of a schematic of, here are the ones that supervise, hey, supervisors, here are the ones that you are okay just acting on your own, and here are the ones that you need to be communicating with HR about. And so I guess I want to just be transparent in how it would likely operate, just because I think with or without the language there, I think the district's kind of within its rights to add whatever layers it needs to add as far as who approves what, right? That's just kind of part of what we do as management, is delegate responsibility and whatnot. So, yeah.
I won't.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, I won't disagree with that. I mean, I think that if it becomes something where no one is ever being approved for this, then it sort of becomes like an empty benefit. You know, so that's probably something we would sort of keep our eyes on, you know, but yeah, that's kind of how it felt, you know, that like, hey, if these leave requests are already going to HR, you know, in a sense, that's kind of part of your guys' internal workings, you know, and that might be part of, you know, like you said, it might be part of the ability of the supervisor to approve it. You know, but
I think that the two examples I gave last time are a good fit for this. You know, one was, I want to take 2 days off a week for a whole semester. So that of course had to go through many layers of approval and in the end disapproval, versus I want to leave 15 minutes early every Thursday to go to this Spanish class. Sure, she and I worked that out and she's going to flex, right? So
yeah,
that's I don't think things are just not being approved, but I think the bigger ones will go through a bigger process.
it's also, I think, tricky too, because we're seeing a lot of this, you know, I mean, sort of like the bus thing for last summer. I know that you guys are having a hard time just having enough people to get the job done. We understand that and feel it too. You know, but it's also, I think, hard to look at this kind of thing where it, you know, a year or two down the road, everything is hunky dory. I really hope that that's true. And staffing isn't as much of an issue. It you know, these kinds of requests might become kind of a different thing. You know, if coverage is more available, if everything isn't so much of, you know, kind of at a crisis level, you know, I don't want us to look at this kind of a benefit within the lens of what's going on right now, basically, is my point, too much. At the same time, you know, being sensitive to you guys having to, you know, make the work of the district go on.
I don't have any other questions on this one. Did Side A or anybody on district team, any questions on this?
No, no questions. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.
Anybody else on my team want to say anything? I think we're ready. Pretty close on this one too.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say.
All right, thank you.
Well, when we talk about this stuff for hours, we can get through these counter proposals pretty quick once we start getting down to it. And I think that's it for us.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you for bringing those. Thank you for being prepared with them. I think that those are all articles that we're really close on or at agreement on. So that's great. I think we can make some progress on those today. Looks like we are at our original time that we were going to take a break, and the next thing on the agenda was HCU financial presentation. So I don't know if it makes sense to take something of a break right now, and you guys can get kind of set up and ready for that, or what your thoughts are.
Yeah, I think I'd like to have my team take about a 10-minute break.
Okay.
I mean, do you guys want to caucus at all, or is that?
Well, I mean, we will want to caucus at some point on the articles that you just presented, and so I'm fine kind of structuring our time however it makes sense. I mean, if we want to take a little bit longer period right now, we could probably caucus on what you brought us.
I guess, are you guys presenting? I don't have the agenda up.
Yeah, we are. After our lunch break, we have a handful of articles that we're presenting. And I think we do need our lunch break just to go over those one last time and make sure they're all set and ready to go. Correct, team? I'm kind of looking at Anna.
Yeah.
Well, how
Okay.
about we just take a short break right now, 10,
Okay.
15 minutes or something, and then come back and we'll do our financial proposals and then we can
Yeah, that sounds great. You want to say 5 after then?
Yep, that sounds
Sure.
good.
Okay.
See you at 11:05.
All right,
awesome,
thank
you guys. See you soon.
Hey, Connor, are you still there? Oh. Yep.
I'm here. Yes.
I'm just gonna stay on this meeting, but just turn my camera and video off.
Yep.
Because we're not meeting right now.
No, I was going to do the same thing.
can't say that. You can't say that.
There's the gang all back.
Oh, let's see. I think we are.
Yeah,
Yep.
looks like a couple of your folks aren't quite back yet. Melody,
Yeah, she was grabbing a link.
yeah, and Lori.
Oh, it's so nice to see the flowers starting to come out. Magnolias are starting to open.
I know, and it's light later.
Yeah, Monday was a little brutal, but besides, I think I've already kind of adjusted to the earlier mornings. I will always take more sunshine at night.
Yeah, I agree that the outcome is better, but the adjustment to the old spring forward is not quite as smooth as the fallback.
Yeah,
But
fallback is suddenly everything's an extra hour. I remember when
Yeah.
my daughter was young, that fallback, we'd be like, okay, now we can get her to sleep an hour earlier. And it would last about a week. My daughter, even from being a baby, I don't think ever went to sleep before 9,
Ugh.
but she also slept till 8, which many parents would envy.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
I think so.
All right.
See, I think we had sort of like talked about kind of giving the presentation that Kira gave, and then kind of ending it with this. Didn't 100% jibe with the with the agenda, and that's fine. But again, I feel like we're closer in some ways, and this is maybe just me talking as a rep who has seen these kinds of negotiations happen for a long time. It always almost feels like we're further apart as we sort of get closer on economics, you know, and it's always, you know, a fairly frustrating process for both sides. You know, but I feel like we, you know, we are doing some work, and I think that this offer represents a fairly significant movement on our part. We still have the wage study adjustment on year 2, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. The step advancement we've moved off of, you know, so that's just at the normal sort of 3% increase per step. We're still fairly high on the COLA, but we feel like that there's a lot of sort of moving pieces to this still. And we want to make it clear to the district that, you know, getting a high COLA is, you know, is really the top priority of our members. You know, so we still have like 4.5, 4, and I think the 4% sort of is in recognition that, you know, that in year 2, and originally, and maybe even our last proposal, I think we still had the wage study adjustment coming in at year 1. But, you know, sort of recognizing that there's kind of going to be an added expense in year 2, and then a 4.5 on year 3. You know, on the one hand, I think we really want the wage study, but we're, you know, because we recognize that, you know, that these are our members who are underpaid, like vis-a-vis the market, and that's something we definitely want to rectify. But again, and I've said this before, it's always hard when you have, you know, sort of like a selective salary increase being discussed in bargaining. You know, and I've had other tables where year after year of having a hard time sort of like discussing wage study adjustments at the bargaining table, have sort of agreed to like sort of form an off-cycle wage study committee that sort of would look at, you know, a fairly like discrete number of classifications, try to get a sense of where they stand vis-a-vis the market, and then do adjustments to those kind of outside of the table, because it becomes very political once it gets involved in bargaining. And again, I know I've mentioned that before. It's kind of an old gripe of mine, especially because I used to spend a lot of time gathering data about, you know, for salary studies, and then sort of saw the result often that happened at the bargaining table. But ours is still in there. But we feel like that there is some interplay between the wage study taking up a fair amount of expense and the COLA. So we're still looking at, you know, we've moved off considerably what our proposal was for longevity before, but we still have on the table a 2% step at 15 years. So I think before it was like 10, 15, 20. And I think we were asking originally maybe 4, or, you know, corresponding to the step increases we were talking about. So we've come down significantly from that down to 2% for people who had been here 15 and longer. I think that, you know, part of that is, you know, is the kind of recognition that you guys are adding an extra step in what would essentially, depending on who the employee is, would kind of be coming in at hypothetically at year 10 or thereabouts. So, you know, it'd be sort of like a new 10th step that would then get dropped. And we like that idea. And I'll get back to that in a minute, but I think that's part of the reason that we were kind of willing to move off of the 10-year longevity. So for right now, we've got, we're still asking for a 2% longevity step. So that's a 2% increase to the people who have been here 15 years or longer. to their salary, not a straight dollar amount. We're as the district has proposed. So another thing that we haven't mentioned, but that we've been keeping a close eye on is House Bill 4030. You know, and it's made some significant progress in the short session. You know, and that's, you know, it's specifically for retention, recruitment and retention money to be provided to the district. So, you know, we also recognize that our understanding of it's like a one-time money that's being provided to the districts. So we're not putting any kind of a dollar amount in here, but we feel like we need to like have a conversation about it. You know, we've heard that, you know, we've heard amounts that, you know, could be possibly coming to the district through this. You know, and I think that, you know, I know that the reason that this was passed, and, you know, I was one of the people who pushed for it in the beginning, among many others, you know, was to sort of offset, you know, a lot of the bonuses that have been given out. But we think it could also be, you know, a valuable way, as we've discussed and proposed in previous counters, you know, that having some sort of a dollar bonus, a dollar amount, kind of flat dollar amount bonus, could be a good way to keep people at the district. So we're not giving up on that, but we're kind of like recognizing that some of the details of that still need to be kind of worked out. We like your guys. The next part is the, you know, adding a 4% top step in year 1 and then dropping that first step in year 2. So that's also part of our proposal, as you guys have proposed last time. We appreciated the movement on that, and we think that that's, I think, a really good workable idea. And then the insurance cap. Trying to remember what your guys' insurance cap proposal was last time. Maybe Michelle. I'm seeming to remember that you guys were proposing a bigger increase in year 1 than what we have here. And sorry to my team for not having thought of this before. Is that right, Michelle? Were you saying? Trying to remember if that was part of your guys'
Sorry,
proposal.
Rob, I had to find my unmute there. No,
That's all right.
I think that we're the same on that all the way across.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for some reason I was remembering something about that. So, but yeah, in this proposal, we're at 50, 50, and 50 for 150 increase over the 3 years.
I think
Yep.
the phase in over time from the district perspective was on the employee opt-out increase. So that may be what you're thinking of in terms of, we had like 0 and 50, I think, and maybe 100 in the 3rd year. So that insurance opt-out increase may be what you're thinking of.
Okay. Okay. Well, so for right now, we've got it at 100, but we'd, you know, be willing to talk about that if you guys have some other ideas. And then we still have the employee waive portion to pool. Yeah, and you know, we still have bilingual sort of down there too. But I think that that's it. Are there other comments that my team wants to make, or, you know, obviously you guys probably have some questions too. You know, the presentation was that good, huh?
Was all the stuff there like Michelle's, Rob?
I mean, it's a high bar that she sets, but I'm trying.
Kidding. Thank you. Thank you for the thought and time you put into, you know, thinking through some of the changes. I appreciate, you know, the efforts to still keep this within a 3-year contract, to integrate that wage study that we did together. There was a lot of, you know, time and work and energy that was placed into that. And then, you know, just looking at also the increase to benefits. So thank you. We appreciate the time and effort that you guys have put into making some adjustments to your counter proposal. Michelle?
Yeah, I just have a clarifying question around the longevity step at 15 years. So it's 2%. Is that effective in year one on top of the step addition? Or is that for years 2 and 3 and forever after that?
I think that in the past, we've basically said year one. We're also, we recognize that we're pretty far into year one. So that's not actually a question I 100% know. I don't think we thought about that, but
Okay, and is that in 15 years in a position, or is that 15 years from the original date of hire or seniority date? Have you guys just trying to, that's gonna matter how much it costs. So I'm trying to figure that out.
I mean, my assumption as somebody who would want to trying to cost it would be 15 years since original hire date. That would be at least my first assumption and what I thought we were thinking. I mean, the seniority date, I'm trying to think of the interplay between that and the original hire date, because there are some reasons why that could reset, right?
If I may.
Yeah, go ahead,
It's
Melody.
original hire date, because if somebody's been with the district for a number of years and they had stepped out or near stepping out and they changed positions and they moved down the salary schedule back down to, like, say, step 3 or 4, that's not going to be, they'll be in a new position at that point, but they will have been with the district for more than 15 years, maybe. So that's what I'm thinking. That's why my thought was with the district seniority or hire date.
Okay, and has there been discussion on how that would play out for the employee, as in paid at the end of the year? And not, or would it be on their base position as we move through the year?
On their hourly. Well, we are thinking on their hourly, an increase in their hourly pay. So that was
Okay.
our thought for longevity, because that would help ease the those employees, those classified employees that are feeling like they've been here for a number of years, but the people are moving closer to them, and eventually they may have been here for 15 or 20 years and people will be making the same as them that were hired after them. And eventually that will still catch up, but it shows them that being with the district for 15 years or longer means something to the district and means something to, is shown in their pay. So we were thinking hourly.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about how to work that into a salary schedule, because that would add a new layer or a new schedule for everybody who's over 15 years. So I'm just logistically trying to figure that out. The most straightforward way to administer it would be in the final paycheck for the year in a lump sum. So that might be something for you guys to kind of kick around to see what the preference would be. Thought. That
So
way
we
we
did-
capture, that
if
way
you
we
say
capture
lump-
all of the wages that they've earned through the year.
And so what you're suggesting is, say, because I think we were just assuming it would essentially almost be like an additional longevity step at the top of the wage scale that would be, people would become eligible for when they get to year 15. But what you're suggesting is that your question is kind of more specifically about how is that paid?
Right,
And-
well, and Melody just shared that, you know, what in her perspective, it would be on top of an hourly rate. So even if someone has 15 plus years in the district, but they're not on the top step, they're somewhere in
Yeah,
the middle,
it's true.
they would have that
Yep.
additional 2% added to their hourly rate. So the most straightforward way, I'm just sharing with you guys, is that at the end of the year, we would look at the total wages they earned in that position and have a lump sum of 2% of whatever that was. So a little bit more of a look back in the final paycheck for the year.
So maybe you can kind of look at that and figure out, you maybe come back with that to us with some ideas that you've got, you know, cooking in that little brain of yours, and we can, you know, we can go from there. Because
And-
because I understand it's gonna be different on your end than how we're thinking of it. So maybe we can come to meet in the middle somewhere.
And in the meantime, as we're talking to employees, the classified employees, we can ask them what their preference would be on this.
Yeah, I mean, what you're suggesting, Michelle, just to be clear, is not a one-time payment like that, so say you'd look back and say, okay, this is the total amount that you made this year, 2% of that is this. And then say somebody who reached the 15-year mark next year, you would do the same thing, but that amount would increase depending on all the other kind of factors, right?
Yeah, it'd be an annual calculation for anyone with 15 plus years. And if they hit that 15-year mark in the middle of the year, I'm thinking it would be prorated for that time. So these are all details that we can work out as far as implementation, but as far as the added amount to an hourly rate versus a lump sum at the end of the year, that's a pretty significant difference for folks. So I just wanted you guys to kind of kick that around a little bit.
And I just want to make sure that I want to make sure that, my thought is clear that it's not a one-time one and done payment, that they get it at the end of whatever year 1, year 2, whichever one we agree to, but then they also get it the next year and then the next year. So, okay, I just
Right.
want to make sure that it's not a flash in the pan, that it is a continuous bonus or a continuous thank you for them.
Right. That's what I wanted to double check to make sure that 2% follows us each year. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to lose that, like just get the 2% for what I made in year 1. And then I'm back down to the regular wages the next time. That 2% above my regular wage should follow me, right? That's how we're trying to explain.
That's my understanding.
Okay.
You're just saying that it would be hard. It would be like a separate class of people who've been over, that if it was straight hourly rate in every single check that they got, that you would have essentially like, a whole different class of employees in the way that the salary schedule would work. Yeah, no, I can understand that. Anything else?
I don't have anything else. I mean, I think, you understand the proposal presented nice and clear. I think the, format's real understandable and everything. So, my goal always is to make sure Michelle has all her questions answered. So she's kind of our expert on this one. It sounds like she's had an opportunity to ask her questions. So I feel like we're pretty well set, unless anybody else on our team has any additional questions.
Yeah, not a question, but I would just want to take the opportunity to add that from a board perspective and from my personal perspective, this board is very proud of the work our union partners and our administrative team did at the outset of COVID. And we may have a lot of employees now that weren't here in March 2020, but we're very proud of the work that we did as a team to ensure that nobody missed a paycheck, and that while districts were laying people off all around it, while every corporation in America laid off or reduced hours for everyone, that every member of our staff was made whole through some creative methodology. And when we talk about ways that the board and the district show their appreciation for employees, I would hope that that is considered as part of the calculus, and that appreciation, that it was very important to us in our conversations that at the worst time any of us could ever remember, we needed to be there for everyone and make sure that no matter what, their paycheck was made whole. So we may be a "what have you done for me lately" society, but I want to just sort of say like that this board is very proud of that work that you all did, that our administrative team did, to figure out, repurposing people, driving lunches to people, figuring that out was a team effort. I just wanted to sort of add that, we're still, as we're coming out of this, hopefully maybe meeting in person next time, still pretty proud of that work that we all did at the outset.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, we are proud of that as well, but I mean, it also benefited everybody at the district in a way that they would be able to retain and keep moving forward when that time came and we were lifted. So, I mean, it was kind of a win-win on both sides. So
And other districts are finding it, they didn't retain their people. We understood, take the long-term view.
yeah, so some did, some didn't, but you know, I mean, like Portland Public, you know, I mean, that, you know, whatever, but I'm just throwing it out there. It's,
Yeah.
there were some benefits to doing it the way we did too, so.
Yeah, there was a lot of work that was done by some of the people who are at this table. A lot of hours spent in negotiations. Part of the reason we're still at the table a year in, you know, it's because of the amount of work that was done. But we appreciate that, Mark. You know, and I feel like you know, this next session, I think will be pretty important. We're going to have a nice long amount of time together. There's not going to be an enormous amount of language stuff. We're going to still be sending back and forth. So I think we should be able to focus in on economics this next time around. And Michelle, if stuff comes up that you want to clarify or, you know, just reach out, you know where to find us.
I do have a request from the HCU team, and you know, it has to do with kind of the reference to the living wage that keeps being brought forward. And I think that we need to look more carefully at the data of our employees and talk about, you know, get a definition of living wage and what that means, because we have only 15% of classified staff are 12-month, 8-hour-day employees. The rest are 10-month or less than 12-month or less than full-time. And that's due to circumstances outside of the district's control. So that definition of living wage, I think that it almost feels accusatory that we aren't providing that. But when I look at the statistics around the employment choices that people have made, I just want to make sure that that information is available to everyone, that the district hasn't in any way tried to reduce the amount of work that people have and the opportunities they have to earn. So if we could maybe get that from your team, just what they see as a living wage, because in terms of benefits and the rates that we're paying, and the types of hours and calendars that we have for people, I think we need to maybe get a little bit more solid on that, because it feels like words that we maybe don't have the same understanding of. That if that'd be okay.
Yeah, or maybe your definition of a living wage is different than ours. You know, and a livable wage is, you know, we shouldn't have to choose whether we pay a bill or put food on our table. Okay, that's unacceptable, and that's very sad. You know, that was very hard to read whenever we were going over that survey. But thank you, Michelle.
At some point, it might not have been a declaration, more like a side comment or whatever, but there was some indication that this group did not intend to be first to completion. That the idea was maybe that this group did not benefit from agreeing to things first, and you wanted to wait until the licensed staff was settled. Is that still the case? Was that something that I understood to actually be true, or is it just an offhanded comment? Like, so if the timetable for us being done, what's that?
Refer to where that comment came from.
It was one of the days we were in person that, like, well, we're not going to be first or whatever. So maybe it's just was an aside thing. So if that's not the case, then let's, you know, make sure we get all the time we can together. But if this group coming to an agreement with the district is contingent on things outside of our realm, we should recognize that.
Well, I can say for myself, we're not stalling the process to wait for license. We're bargaining for ourselves. So that's, with that said, I mean, I don't think that, yes, we do talk to the licensed group and they talk to us because we are co-workers, but I don't think either one is waiting for the other one to settle or to come to an agreement. I think we're bargaining for ourselves.
Yeah,
So
I think
please don't imply that we're stalling for them.
No,
Yeah.
I think we're all going as fast as we can. It was just as we get down to what hopefully seems like the end, like maybe ever getting close enough to think that we're not there, but we can see it from here.
Yeah, well, again,
Yeah.
that's what we get for bargaining, only 3.5 hours to 4 hours a session. And it takes more time to do in a month what we could do in a day. So that's our frustration. And that's what we were talking to Con about. Like we need more time at the table. Just get this through, start throwing proposals back and forth and get it done. This is taking too long.
Yeah.
And
Also, I think, Mark, you might be remembering too, you know, a conversation, you know, it wasn't a proposal that I put forward, but I think I was also talking about, you know, and I think this has come up in the past about a Me Too clause, which basically says, hey, once an agreement has been settled from one side, there's sort of a recognition that, you know, that there isn't going to be like an inequitable agreement between two sides, you know. And Brian, you were saying that it's tricky because there's so many differences between the two groups, you know, and we recognize that, you know, and there are aspects to our, you know, what's on the table for us that isn't on the table for licensed, you know, and the reverse is, I'm sure, true as well. But, you know, I mean, it's something I've seen a lot of being part of bargaining tables that have sort of various different tables going on at the same time, is there is somewhat of a tension between that. You know, but no, we'd like to settle this, you know, and we're not waiting. But it also seems like, you know, that from our conversations with the license side, that you guys are getting closer with them too. So it feels like both sides are sort of, you know, fairly together. It's more of like a feeling of if we settled like months ahead of them, you know, and then found out that they got a really pretty different financial settlement, that would have, you know, been something that, you know, that wasn't something we were really, you know, too interested in doing without some sort of like, you know, indication that we would also get that stuff.
And the last time we were in person was months ago.
It was, yeah.
right. And I want to clear this up. Nobody is stalling the bargaining process. And I don't
think that's what I said.
I kind of take offense to how you
No,
said
it's not what I
that.
said at all. Not at all.
That's how we're kind of perceiving it. So
Yeah, I mean, I think that might be a perception, Debbie. I didn't hear Mark saying that you were stalling the process, and I haven't felt that you're stalling the process either. I think it was just a question of, you know, I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility or experience that one group sort of wanted to wait and see what happened with another group before we came to a final agreement. I don't think that equates to stalling. I think it is.
okay, I just want to make that clear, because, you know, perception is everything and other people have their own perception of what's said. I want to make sure that it's clear as a bell. Okay, so that's good.
Yeah.
I'm glad you didn't imply it that way or mean it that way. Thank you.
I think both groups have come to every session prepared with proposals to exchange. Progress has been made virtually every session. We've typically reached some tentative agreements each time. So I fully don't believe the district is stalling, and I've never had the impression that you guys were stalling either. I think we've continued to work on, you know, a large number of issues that were brought to the table.
Michelle's had her hand raised, so I want to make sure she's.
All right, Michelle.
Sure.
All right, I didn't want to put in wrong, but Michelle, you said something about with the livable wage thing, that we're looking at mostly like 7-hour jobs instead of 8-hour jobs on our people that are trying to make a living wage. And you said that the hours were outside of our control. So my question is, how is the hourly allotment for each person outside of our control?
Well, I think anybody that works less than full-time FTE has an opportunity to have additional FTE someplace in the district, just based on the openings that we have. And I'm not trying to presume that that's, you know, I don't know the individual situations. I'm just looking at the straight data that shows us the number of hours and the number of days and that people are under contract for. So that's that individual work agreement that they have entered into. And that's a personal choice. And to compare that to an annual salary of a teacher or something, it feels like we need some context around livable wage. A lot of our classified employees have the position they have because they don't want to be a year-round employee. They want to have that schedule that aligns with their kids or their neighbors or whatever. They want to be in the community there, and that's all perfectly reasonable. But it seems like it keeps getting put that the district is not providing a livable wage. And so I think we just need a little bit more definition around what that is. If it's a 40-hour-a-week full-time position, like another person in the community or any of our 12-month employees that work that, I think that they would say they may feel like they are having a livable wage and they don't need a second job during the summer or breaks or whatever to fill in the gaps. So I feel like our school community, especially our 10-month community, is very different from, you know, the corporate world or a lot of these jobs that it seems like we're being compared to. And I just want to get really solid on that. What is that livable wage? Is it the minimum wage for Oregon? Because we hit that and we beat that for our positions. And so if that even is a full-time 12-month job, that's going to look a lot different than someone who's a 5-hour-a-day educational assistant that works for 10 months. So we just need to, I think we need some clarity around that. And I'm happy to provide the data that shows exactly how many, you know, staff we have and their hours and their calendars and just getting a little bit more solid on that, because that it just is not clearly represented at this point. I don't think that we can view it the same way without more definition. And you guys have brought items like that forward too throughout this bargain. And so I think that just because that one continues to come up, it was part of the survey, that we should be able to have that, at least what your perception of that is, at least then we can have a better understanding. And if my team, if I'm really rogue on that, will you check me right now to make sure that I'm not out of bounds, because I do think it's an important differentiation for us.
I think that one thing for me is that whenever we're looking at positions that get posted, seldom are they ever posted at 8 hours for the positions, even if they're 10-month positions. So even though I might have to have another job during the summer to carry me over, Beaverton, when they post their position, they're posting 8-hour positions. So if you get that job, you're doing 40 hours a week, and generally they have more days associated with it as well. So you have, you know, potentially up to 20 more days plus more hours per day. So I don't feel like our district offers those opportunities unless you are in one of two roles in the school kind of thing, that all the SEAs and all of the admin support and all the other ones that are working there. Obviously, our kitchen is a little different because what are you possibly going to do in the kitchen for that many hours? So you're looking at different kinds of jobs there. But when we're looking at, I work a full-time job as an admin support person, there's not another job I can go and get that's going to do a 1 hour per day to make up for that, because that 1 hour would be during the time that I'm doing my other job. So I can't do an extra job. And so there's nothing I can add to that unless I go out and get a completely other separate job at night to make a livable wage to be able to support myself. So we'll define it better. We'll get better back with it. But part of the problem is the district doesn't offer the kind of hours that we need to be able to make up what we have to do. And other districts are. So that's why when people say they're considering going to other districts, I could have the same job over at Beaverton. And even if the dollar signs was a little bit less, the overall dollars would be more.
I see Melody and Kara's hand up there, but I just wanted to clarify with Michelle. Like, Michelle, what positions are you referring to that? Because you know, like an ed assistant, to me, working with a lot of districts, ed assistants, for example, are almost universally from one district to the next. You know, school year employee that works somewhere between 5 and 7 hours a day. So I didn't know I didn't catch what specific positions you were talking about that might have more days and another hour or two attached to them at Beaverton. So just that clarification would help.
When you're looking at admin support, any admin support role that I would get over there as an office job would be full. And there's not a single admin support, at least at my school, that is 8 hours except for the office manager. So
Gotcha.
yeah, those kind of roles. The roles that I would switch to at some other school district have all been 8-hour jobs.
Gotcha. Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, I wanted to piggyback off of what Michelle said too. That one of the other things that's outside of staff's control is reduction of hours. And I've seen that happen to a lot of staff where they're hired into a position at 7 hours, and then they see their hours gradually reduced over the years. And that's a huge financial impact to somebody who's making, 30-something thousand a year if they get an hour or an hour and a half of their contract cut, or if they get several days of their contract cut. That's a significant chunk of their take-home pay. So I agree we can do some more definition, but I think, that factors into it too. And even to anchor back to some of the comments that were in our presentation, people talking about like, I don't get enough hours to do the work that I need, or I'm getting hours reduced here or there, like it all has a financial impact. So it's not just straight what our wages are or what our hours are in one given year, but the impact over several years when there's reduction.
Yeah, those budget reductions are usually brought forward by not having enough funding. And so that's another reason why we need to be cautious as we move forward. So I definitely appreciate that. We've had to make lots of reductions over the past, 10 years. So
Yeah, I agree, Michelle. I've remembered many of those times, and often they were choices between laying people off or reducing hours across the board. And I think decisions had been made in many instances to retain as many people as possible, even if that meant reducing an hour from all folks instead of laying off a fairly significant number of them. So I think those were trade-offs and hard decisions that have been made over the years, because, if you look back over a 10-year history, this district, like all districts in the state, has not been adequately funded. This district has worked with an operating deficit far more years than not over the last decade. And no business, no entity can survive for long if you spend more than you take in. That's just pretty self-explanatory. So the districts worked hard during those really bad times to keep people employed, I think.
Melody,
Sorry.
wanted to share something.
Yeah, well, I just want to, Kara and Michelle both said it, that the reduction of hours, I started out at 6.75, which is just under a full benefit level. And I can't get bumped up that extra 15 minutes. Well, over the last several years, I've been reduced down to 6. And over one summer, I actually increased with my COLA and my wage went up, but with the reduction of hours, my checks were actually smaller. My yearly salary was actually smaller than before. And so we have no control over that. Me as an SEA, I'm student to student contact. I start when they start, I end when they end, my students. So I can't add any more time as an SEA. I can't go to a 7-hour SEA because I work at an elementary school. I guess I could apply and become a 2-hour night custodian somewhere, but that, that just doesn't seem feasible to a lot of SEAs to be an SEA during the day and then work at night. And for me personally, it's not going to work because, my union role. But yeah, so that's part of the living wage issue, is that with the reduction of hours, we don't always know. And I understand the finances. I've been to Salem. I've been a part of if it wasn't my PTA world, it was my union world with my district world. I know how the financing works with the schools and stuff. And we're doing our part as a union to try to get K-12 funding up. But that's where we're coming at with the livable wage. If you want a hard, fast number or hard, fast hours, we can talk as a team and talk to our members and see what they say when they say that.
I think Michelle Davis had something else too.
Yeah, when you guys were talking about, we've had to cut over the years through the district, and you're saying we trim back the hours of us to keep the people. That's really putting it on the backs of the classified people to be able to carry us through, where you're saying, okay, we're going to cut your pay. We're going to not cut your pay. We're going to cut your hours. So that cuts your pay. But whenever time comes back around, we don't increase our hours back up, right? If you cut teachers' pay, you do it by cutting days. When you cut teacher days, that gives them opportunity to work at some other job or do Uber or whatever for those days. But when you cut our hours, you put us in a position where we can't do anything for that day because we lost a half hour every day, and that's not enough time to accomplish that mission. So it's different if you're cutting teachers' pay than if you're cutting it off the back of us, and then we don't get it back at the end. But the teachers, while they lose a day and don't have student contact for that day, so they lose some of their income, don't lose any income per day for their yearly salary.
Yeah, it's also like a complicated interplay, I think, between, because on the one hand, you can kind of look at it in terms of, like doing some reductions and not having to do layoffs. But the flip side to that is like recruitment and retention. And I think that the district is running into that wall a bit now, where they're having a hard time maintaining their workforce. And a lot of these factors, I think, play into that. The calculations that people make about whether or not they can continue working for the district are tied into how many hours they're getting, what their hourly rate is, all these things that we're talking about. But I mean,
Yeah, that's similar to the bus drivers as well. Like, we lost a half hour, and that's been quite a few years, and we never got that back, and we're, full bore here. We're full bore and still 7.5. Half hour makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the difficulty is when the district has down years budgetarily, it's not that the state makes that up in another year. It's true the district gets increases in funding from one year to the next. But for example, over this last biennium, the district's funding, state funding for education anyways, went up by a total of 3.3% over a 2-year span. So about 1.6% a year. And when inflation goes up 7%, I mean, I know you guys know that, and funding goes up 3.3%, expenses are going to outpace. And the proposal that we have on the table is, even the one that we have on the table is significantly in excess of what we had on the table, like last bargaining go around, for example. The level of funding has not gone up by the same amount that our proposal has gone up. So, the ability to pay for what we have on the table is significantly compromised. And so we've had that on the table in recognition of the fact that cost of living has gone up by a significant amount, and we have difficulty in filling and retaining in many key positions. So I think we're trying to recognize that, but there's never a time where the state says, okay, we shorted you last time, now we're going to make it up this time by giving you 10% more than you had last time. That's why the add back piece doesn't happen, because the district never gets added back with funding. It's just like, here's enough to limp along for the next 2-year period. And again, having worked with this district for 20 years, the discussion is never, how can we take advantage of employees to try and save money? It's honestly, the very first equation is always, how can we provide services to kids? How can we keep, providing the services that need to get provided to kids? And then how can we do that within a very limited, budget guardrails? So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you'll get no argument from us about, the way that the state funds its education system is, travesty. I think that's one thing we'll all agree on. I mean, and it kind of like brings me to the next thing I wanted to at least have a brief discussion about. I mean, it feels somewhat like a Band-Aid, but are you guys sort of aware of House Bill 4030? And have you guys do you guys have any more information about, how that's going to work?
Yeah, I don't think we've gotten much information from the state as to how that's going to work. I think we've got a total dollar amount statewide that's been allocated for that purpose, which I think is 78 million. Michelle's going to correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think that's what the legislature allocated. It's a grant-based program, which I think means you have to put in application on some level to try and get funding. My understanding is, Michelle, maybe jump in here. My understanding is each district's proportional share of that 78 million is roughly the same as your proportional share of what you get from the state school fund, right? So if Hillsborough takes 3% of the state school fund, I don't know what your actual number is on that, Michelle, then you would get that same percentage of that 78 million.
Yeah, we're right at 3.5% of the state's
Dang, that was
students.
close.
Yeah.
So would that roughly be about 2.2 million?
Mhm.
Safe to say? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so we are aware of that, and would expect, you know, I mean, it's always kind of a tricky thing. I don't know when that's going to all be finalized, and so how it works in with the bargain, or how that gets implemented. And obviously, we have other employee groups that funding is intended to address as well. So that's as far along the tracks, I think, as we've gotten, is knowing that money is out there, knowing that the potential for, and it's one-time money, of course, knowing that the potential for getting it. I don't think that the grant that you have to, I don't think they're going to deny your grants, right? The money is supposed to go towards recruitment and retention, is my understanding. But I think that districts will have a lot of flexibility as to how they express that or how that's utilized.
Yeah, and it didn't just make
Mark, do you have
progress.
anything to add to that?
Yeah, it didn't just make progress. It passed. It's been signed by
Right.
the speaker, signed by the president.
Yeah.
So it's on the governor's desk waiting to go. And I think the details are going to be in the language of implementation. So there's going to be guardrails and restrictions put on the district. And this is a different hat. This is my board member hat. This is just looking at legislature. There's going to be guardrails and restrictions put on the district and the methodologies and areas in which they can spend that. And I think everybody can see what they want when you read the legalese of the language. Maybe Brian has better insight if he were to read it, but I think it's gonna, it's really gonna come down to the definitions of how we can spend the money. And some of the summaries I see are pretty broad, right? Educator workforce recruitment and retention program, right? That feels like a pretty big bucket into which you can put stuff. Costs incurred by substitute teachers and instructional assistants for training, right? So I mean, reimbursement program for training costs incurred by substitute teachers and instructional assistants. So yeah, I'm not sure how the guardrails are going to play out exactly, but yeah, it should be what, like 2.2, I think.
Yeah, and it's also mandated in there that you that it has to be collaborated with unions. So we look forward to doing that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it
we
would be,
know that we had to do that anyway, right, Debbie? I mean, it's an economic
Right.
condition of employment. So we, even when we give good stuff, if it's money, we have to bargain it with you guys.
Right.
yeah, those are,
I'm just
I mean, it would be
like,
nice if it could be wrapped up into this contract.
I agree too. I agree that it would be nice if it somehow could get factored in. I don't know exactly how to do that, but I might do a little more thinking on that. We've had that conversation about the license bargain as well. Is there a way to reflect that somehow in that bargain? So I might do a little more thinking on that.
Just for timing wise, it seems like the way the rules are, the length of time it takes to write the rules around that and for us to submit an application and do all of, that it would be payable in year 2 of this 3-year agreement is when it would somehow work into year 2. So just kind of keep that in mind, that it's not likely it will get to us fast enough to pay in the current year.
Yeah, that doesn't come as a huge surprise to me. Yeah, and I suppose if we all sort of, if it takes a long time, and I when I said progress, I really kind of meant the actual nuts and bolts of how does this thing really work, but I mean, we could just, I mean, and I don't know what your discussions have been with the license side. It's certainly, the reason we're talking about it is because it's something we'd obviously like to take advantage of. I mean, it ties into a lot of the discussion we've had about bonuses, and some incentive to keep people in the district, recruit new people into the district. That's something we certainly share, an interest we certainly share. But like if it took forever for it to roll out, I mean, there's nothing that says we couldn't do some sort of a reopener to specifically talk about that stuff. without having to,
Yeah, I agree.
so, okay. Is there anything else? Feels like a good discussion.
Yeah, I mean, we actually are hit right on our agenda time of noon for where we're at. So noon to 1, we're gonna take a lunch break and caucus and then be back then. Does that still work for everybody?
Yeah, I believe so. We're going till 2 today.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that works for us. You guys probably have more work to do during this caucus than we do. Which is fine. It would be, but if there's we'd love to get as many TAs as we can today.
Agreed.
If there's stuff like, so we're gonna come back at 1, you guys are gonna present your counters, is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in line with what you were talking about, Rob, of trying to get as many TAs, probably the first thing we're gonna do is take a quick run through of what you guys proposed to us, because I think that there are a number of those things where we're either at agreement or very close to it. So I'm kind of like you, I like to get some progress. So that's probably our job number 1. And then we'll also make sure that we're ready to come back and present the articles that we're on tap for today.
Okay, great. Yeah, it'd be good to get those. And I don't know if how close we are on some of those, if, or how long it's good, the kind of like, chances are we won't really, what I'm thinking is we probably won't have time today to take counters from you guys, caucus, and, but that's okay.
Yeah, that would be my expectation too.
Okay.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll see you guys back here at 1.
Okay, great. Thanks,
Our
guys.
team's going to go into ours. Right, we'll go ahead and
Is everybody back?
just a second here.
Like I see Rob's square, but I don't see Rob. So I just want to make sure he's back.
I think he said he needed to step away for just a minute.
Do you want us to, we can wait a moment that. For some reason, I feel like we should be singing the Jeopardy jingle.
There's that school teacher in you.
I know, it's no worries. Rob, thanks for your patience. We're going to go ahead and start with the cell phone stipend that we're going to be bringing into the contract.
All right. I think this is actually, Hannah, you know what? Sorry to switch gears on you. I actually kind of just like to start with the ones that they brought so we can make sure we get those squared away. Sorry for that curveball. So that would be 16, Article 16 first. Thank you. So I think we hopefully have agreement here. The only thing that we modified from your last proposal is instead of saying within 3 months of the ratification of the contract, we said the committee will meet by September 1, 2022 to formulate the predetermined requirements. Honestly, we did it that way just so it is a little more conspicuous the next time we bargain that we need to get rid of that language because it will have been outdated at that point. So if that was our best guess, not that we say September, not that we don't think we're going to get done until 3 months before September, but we also figured during the summer, might not get some of that work done either. So I suppose if there's a different date you guys prefer, but we thought using a date there would work. So we remembered to take that out next time.
Okay, no, that's great. We'll take a look at it.
Okay. So that was the only change to 16. 20. We added that are known by the transportation department. Again, and Carol can speak to this, just a continued kind of nervousness about, we're totally committed to reporting what takes place. And I think a lot of efforts have been made to make sure people are running things through transportation. But that's who's going to be doing this report, is transportation. So Carol, I don't know if there's anything else you want to say on that.
Yeah, my concern is that, I want to, if I'm supposed to do something, I want to be up front with people and do it correctly. And my trepidation is just simply that, that's, if I know about it, I will report it to you. But if somewhere in the district, somebody is given the okay to use this type of service and it's unbeknownst to me, I just don't want it to come back on it that since I'm the one providing the report, that I'm not being upfront and honest, about who's doing what, because, I don't always 100% in the loop on all parts of that. So especially in the summer months where we're receiving all these extra funding. So I just want to, be upfront about that. And that's why I would like to have that in the contract.
Now, there is other people tracking stuff, so can't you just I don't know, have them report it to you? I mean, you would think that they should be doing that anyway, but there is somebody that's tracking all the charter buses that are going in and out of that place. At least I would hope so. If my kid's on a bus, I want to know where they're at.
I can't answer that.
I think if there's any single entity that knows the most about what's going in and out of there, it's probably transportation department.
But if the school set it up and the school organized it, they may not think to tell Carol. And I think that's the concern, right? So someone definitely knows where your child is and what bus they're on and all that. It's just that they may not have thought to tell transportation.
Correct.
My second question is, who is it that orders the charter buses for the schools? Is that something Denise does?
No, the system is supposed to work as the school requests it. There's a series of questions they're asked. It goes into the form, or it goes into the, whatever system spreadsheet. And then of those, I approve and deny. But right, and then the school makes the arrangements for the charter bus. They do it themselves because that way the charter company, if there's a cancellation or a change in schedule, I'm not going to know about it. The school's going to know about that. Additionally, the school then arranges the billing, whether they're using it from one of their building funds, or if it's being paid for by an organization or a donation and all that.
Okay, if there's a spreadsheet, I don't see why that data can't be pulled from that, but okay.
It sounds like in theory, the vast majority of those requests would go through, or at least would be in a database that transportation has.
Okay, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that schools may go to their supervisors to do something that they receive special funding with. They're given approval to do it. And my system may be, the system that I have with Denise may be circumvented, not out of any sort of malice, but just because it's not in the thought process. And I may not know about that. And so that may happen. In the past, when this came up last summer, yes, there were inquiries made, and what the response was is that, yes, they were given permission to do it, but nobody had any hard and fast data of who did what and when on some of them. So that's why I'm asking, or asked to have that language put in there, because I just want to be clear on that. that if systems are circumvented, no, they shouldn't be, but it happens.
Okay, I mean, we appreciate that. Yeah, oh, Melody's got her hand up.
Yeah, thank you. My question is that what happens if there is a situation with the transportation? Don't they come to the transportation department and say, my child was on a field trip and what happened? They're not back. Do they, or heaven forbid, there's an accident. Shouldn't the transportation department be aware of all transportation of students? Like, what is the difficulty in if somebody charters, make it part of the process, like, hey, we're chartering a bus, it's a private charter, our group is paying for it. Here's the information, transportation. Just to keep the transportation department in the loop of who's transporting our students if something should happen or go wrong.
Even with our own buses, the point of contact is always the schools, and the school reaches out to us. It doesn't necessarily come to us. Now, do we have parents that call here? Of course we do. But it's the system is set up that they go to the schools first. It's the school's field trip. We provide the transportation services. So if they use a charter during the summer months, I'm not always the one that makes that approval or denial as the system is currently set up. If during the school year where we're tracking it with the numbers that in the contract, yes, Denise and I use that system and that's where it's done. I can only speak to you of some of the situations of last summer that after it was over that came up in conversation. That schools were given approval by their supervisor, not through transportation.
So we have other procedures where, like, time off, HR is contacted if somebody wants to take a class. So I don't see how it can't be just shoot an email or have access to the spreadsheet of a chartered bus. It doesn't make sense to me. Maybe I'm missing something along the way. Because I, as a parent, I wouldn't have even thought, I would have thought to call transportation if my kids rode the bus for something.
Well, and if it's an after-school activity, I mean, there's people in transportation that are later at dispatch, but I mean, the schools don't answer
Right.
the phones after a certain point either. So they're
Right. And band, my son in band, there's many times he's come home from band competitions at 2 a.m. And I'm not going to call the school if their bus is like a couple hours late, which has happened in the past. I'm not going to call the school because I know nobody's there at 2 a.m.
But again, we're talking
We're
about
not either.
charters. We're not talking about HSD buses providing the service.
I'm talking anytime that a student is transported is what I'm talking about. And if the band had to charter a bus, it'd be the same thing. I don't know, maybe I'm missing something. So maybe our team can talk about it because we have a couple of bus drivers. Maybe they can help me understand it, draw me a picture or something. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here. Well, thank you.
I mean, what might help and, you know, is you guys usually communicate to your principals and the schools that like these kind of requests should come through transportation. I mean, I know last year was a bit of an outlier and it sounds like this year might also be a bit, but is there a way that the district could sort of like strengthen that connection a bit so it doesn't feel so, because we don't want to agree to this and then have a bunch of this stuff sort of not, you know, not make it into this, you know, this documentation.
Yeah, again, I don't think I fully understand the complexities of the process, how all this gets organized, which is why I've been letting Carol kind of take the lead on this.
Okay, so if I could just say, because I I think people need to understand that last summer was an anomaly. And so that's why I'm having a hard time answering these questions is that I'm not the superintendent or the cabinet or whoever. I mean, so it's getting a little out of my wheelhouse to be able to answer those questions. If during the school year, there is a very laid out process. Last summer was an anomaly where we had a very short amount of time to put a lot of programs together. And we were struggling to get enough staff. Somewhere on the education side of our district, you know, there were opportunities for students. Things went and things got done. I don't know all the ins and out of it. I wasn't a part of it. So that's why I'm struggling a little bit to answer the questions. You know, I think that, just a minute, I have ADHD, so sometimes I get sidetracked. But so I think, you know, I think we need to be realistic. And I'm just saying that, you know, my first choice would be to not have this in there, but I know you guys are trying to struggle to find a medium ground that we can agree to. So that's why it's like, you know, I'm happy to do this, but I just, you know, I don't ever want to be in a position where, you know, I said, you know, well, this is how many, and then have, you know, Debbie call me and say, Carol, we heard that there was 18 and you only said there was 12, and be like, you know, I just don't want to be in that position. And I wouldn't, you know, I'm not going to be here forever, but, you know, somebody who was in my position to be in a, you know, to be like that. So, you know, that's what I mean. I will do the best of my ability, but if a principal was given permission to, yeah, go forth and just make the arrangements, you're good, you're golden, you got this thing to go do this great opportunity, it happens. So, you know, and Melody, you know, if a kid is on a trip, in all the trips, school is always the first point of contact on the trip. We're just providing the transportation service. If it's come through us, yes, there are systems in place. We know where that bus is. We know who's going where and when and all of that. But when you use a charter, now the charter company takes on that role. So the school then is the first point of contact, because transportation doesn't have it. So like we don't even know pickup times, departure times, you know, which route they're going to go, you know, anything like that. And so that's why we have always been like, okay, well, that's your wheelhouse. Here's our wheelhouse. My job is to look at it when I know about it, be sure that, nope, our drivers don't have, you know, we don't have capacity to do it. Yes, go forth and do. That doesn't necessarily mean that somebody higher than me could also give that same permission. Does that help at all?
I can speak a little bit. I don't know how helpful it is, but as somebody who organized field trips for several years at a high school, the summer ones were incredibly difficult because of that 30-day notification window. And if we missed that, because people were not always in the building. As a dean, I was not always in the building over the summer. Office staff are not always there. So to get them submitted in time to transportation was always an issue, because schools are not staffed fully over the summer. And so if an opportunity comes up last minute, we're trying to get kids somewhere. I mean, I could run stuff past Carol, but at the end of the day, if there were no bus drivers and it was a short notice, we needed to take a different route to be able to get kids there. So I don't, at that point, Carol, that then would be out of the equation, and we're using an outside entity to try to get our kids where they needed to go. Simply because summer is a bit of an anomaly, and we just don't have people in building, and it doesn't typically follow the same process. So I think there were just a couple times where we resorted to a charter, even though it was more expensive and not ideal, and we would have preferred to use our own transportation. which we trusted more anyway, but because of circumstances, whatever they were, we weren't able to find and get bus drivers for the field trips at Hill High for whatever reason. So we had to resort to outside. So at that point, I would not have communicated to Carol, hey, we're using this and we're using this and we're using that, because it is at the building and it is the teacher and the principal, whoever is facilitating and approving that field trip, to take care of that piece of it. I mean, Carol at that point is out of it and transportation is out of it because we've had to resort to something else. So that's been my experience as someone working at a building level.
So with what you're saying, that's even more of a reason for transportation to know about who's chartering the buses. Who can we contact as a parent, or who can we contact if a summer route, after school, evening route, whatever's chartered out, create like a spreadsheet that if it's a chartered route, okay, great, put in chartered route, here's the charter company, here's the point of contact. Then share it with Carol so that we know what routes have been chartered out. Or those of us that are parents would know, okay, if we contact the transportation department, they can say, oh, you need to call Jeanette at this number. She's in charge of that transportation, that chartered route.
Well, and I can tell you that as part of the charter process, when using an ODE charter, it's an ODE approved charter company, carrier, however you want to say it. One of the requirements of that is that parents are made aware that their student is being transported in a charter. So if your student is on a bus with a charter, you should know that as a parent. I mean, I know that doesn't really help with the drivers knowing or not knowing, but I mean, as a parent, I can just tell you that, Melody, you know, as you talk about as a parent.
Yeah, as a parent, of course, we're going to know where our kids are, but some maybe don't care. But aside from that, I think we just want a basic number. I mean, you know, I could send in information requests and have you go find that data, which to me would be a lot easier if you just kept a running track of it rather than having to stop and go do that every, you know, time we
and I don't disagree with you, Debbie. I mean, I don't disagree with you. All I'm trying to convey is that I will give you what I have. You know,
I get that.
Just like we have in the past. I will give you what I have.
I get it.
I just asked for this language to be in there so that, you know, that it doesn't come back necessarily that, you know, if you find out that there was 22 and I only show there was 18, you know, that because ultimately transportation is an arm of the district, but that doesn't mean that I, as the executive director of transportation, have ultimate authority to say, you know, Mike Scott, you will do it this way. You know, I mean, everybody, you know, I'm not like the superintendent. I'm not, you know, I'm not pointing at Mike, he's blamed for this. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that, you know, there's a chain of command and I'm here and the chain of command goes here. So, Michelle, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I understand that you can't tell them what to do, but we have said many times throughout these meetings that the district can tell the supervisors what to do and the supervisors need to follow that. That's their responsibility. So if we have people at schools taking buses that are not approved buses, because you want to assume they're taking approved buses, but we don't know who they're taking because it didn't come through transportation. So if we don't have a record of what's going on and where they're using it, then there's all sorts of places for things to fall apart. So it really needs to be all of the charters need to go through the school permission form first, because if you're using a charter and you're like, oh, I don't think I'll be able to get a bus, you don't know if you can get a bus until you put in a request either through the charter bus or through the actual trip tracker request. Like, you can't just assume there's no bus available. And then we need to know that you are indeed using an approved charter, because you're saying ODE, but I've got people who have in the past used non-ODE charters because they did it without even me knowing. So, I mean, even in my world of athletics, things have been done on the side that I found out later. especially during the summer and stuff. So I think there needs to be accountability for all the supervisors and all the schools to say, when you're going to use transportation, if you're going to use transportation, you need to go through the transportation process first. If we reject it, then we'll give you information on how you can fulfill that later. But it shouldn't just be assumed that you can, you know what, it's probably not going to happen. So we can just move on and go to transportation our own way, no matter who's paying for it.
And I will say that oftentimes schools will send me an email or they'll just call me and ask me. But again, if I say, no, I can't do it, then, you know, it's no, don't bother putting it in a trip tracker because it's still going to be a no.
But the documentation on that would be on the charter bus request. If they don't bother with the trip tracker because you said no, they'd still need to put in a charter bus request that gets denied.
Denise, did you have a question? I'm sorry.
Oh, you're muted, Denise.
I
Oh, there
was
you go.
just going to comment on the fact that during the summer, yes, it is hard, like Jeanette said, that not all the office staff is there and they may not all know. It is my responsibility to, as I track these charter trips, to make sure that they know that information, but there's not 100% guarantee that everybody's going to follow it. It just is unrealistic. I mean, we, like Carol said, we can give you the information that we have, but we can't give you more than that.
Anchor us back to the language in there that talks about during the summer months is what we're focusing on, because I feel like that's, and there are, you know, circumstances where people are not in there or they're coming back for part of the time, especially like our elementary schools, because all of those folks are not full-time employees for the full year. So I think we're trying to find a way to meet the request, but also be reasonable around how we do that. And I think, yes, there is always room for improvement. I know for myself that I can always do better and be better and get feedback to help to do that. And we do try to share those things, you know, with our administrators as things come up through labor management, where we need to make changes across the system or address things, you know, whether it's a school or whatnot. But I think those that's why I appreciate these conversations, and I appreciate labor management conversations, because we want to try to do better. And I think last year we learned a lot. I certainly learned a lot. I didn't know that all of these charter things were going on in the summer. And so we're trying to plan and be proactive for this summer if there is any distinct changes that are going to happen in regards to what's being available, that we're going to go through our normal processes so that we ensure that our drivers have an opportunity to be afforded to drive during the summer if that's what they want to do and they're able to do. But we're just trying to find a way to make this request that you've put forward, but also try to balance that piece with what Carol is sharing. I know everyone's looking down. When I was a teacher, when everyone looked down, they typically didn't have their cell phones with them, so they couldn't be texting with each other. But I got a sense that maybe what I said didn't land so well. So I take it. It's okay.
No, I think it was fine comment.
Today. I appreciate the conversation today.
Yeah, and I will say too, you know, this has been, you know, in years past, it was a different office that approved. It was the office of, I don't know what the office was, but it was Ryan Petrick. It was in, you know, had a role in athletics and activities that worked with Denise. And, you know, so this last year, it, you know, as Ryan's role changed, this piece came to me, which, you know, I'm grateful for, because I felt like it needed to be, you know, just fine tuned a little bit. And I can tell you that, you know, just what I've learned, you know, from last summer and this summer, I know, or this school year, I know that, you know, for fall, we need to revamp it, no doubt. I hadn't put a lot of thought into summer, but especially in the fall through the school year.
I would like to propose that we move to the next things that we want to share today, because I know we have a limited amount of time, but I think, you know, I have a sense that you guys will be coming back with some potential counter to this.
We will, and we appreciate your guys moving, you know, towards our concept. We do.
Thank you.
Okay, last article that we were responding to you on. It's Article 21. And if you, Hannah, if you just scroll up a little bit, we've accepted the language as you proposed it to us last. So I believe we have a tentative agreement on this one. I mean, I think it is fair to kind of reiterate what I said earlier, and that is the more significant requests in this realm will end up falling to human resources, and I think traditionally have not been approved. The ones where it's like 2 days a week for a semester or something like that. The ones where it's modifying the shift, those I think typically have been done at the supervisory level, and it sounds like some of those have been approved. So I would imagine that that's how things will continue to be right now, especially with the extreme difficulty in getting substitutes. The idea of somebody being gone, a full day or even half a shift or something each week would be pretty difficult to accommodate. But this language is as you proposed it.
That's great. No, we appreciate it. It's
So
good,
that
good
one-
work on this article.
Yep, that one should be ready to go. Yeah, I mean, I guess one thing I'd like to not lose track of that. I mean, the conversations have gotten a little bit tense today on certain topics, but I mean, I do like to emphasize the things where we've found common ground and where I feel like things are getting improved for your bargaining unit members. So I think this article is a good example of that. We're increasing the amount of total dollars that people can access for professional development and the per person amount. So I think that that's a great benefit for people who are looking to take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So those are the ones that we were bringing counter proposals back. Hopefully we're pretty much there on at least 2 of those, although, you guys take a look at that September 1 date. We're proposing this MOU or MOA on cell phones just to stay with that language, the $45. I mean, I think if that amount needs to go up at some point, we'd expect that to happen in bargaining. It's been, I think, static for a while in this MOA. I think so anyway, unless I'm not recalling correctly. It does make sense to take out the piece about voice services only, $20 a month. That seems a little outdated. But we'd like to just roll it into the contract at that current amount. And then again, if that needs to be increased somewhere down the line, we do that at the bargaining table. I suppose the alternative would just be to leave the MOA and change the effective date, but it seems like a good cleanup. So that's that cell phone one. We're getting to some articles with a little more substance to them and where we're still struggling to find some common ground. And Article 2 is one where I think we've done some work, but we're having some difficulties with some of the language you proposed. And part of that's because it feels like some of the concepts that were being proposed in that discipline article and the district had been rejecting it for a period of time are kind of being repurposed into definitions into Article 2. And so for the same reasons we were concerned about them in Article 23, we've got the same concerns here in Article 2. So the definition of due process, for example, particularly that second sentence, workers have the right to consistent and predictable employer responses when a rule is violated. That's I think a fairly subjective statement, one that would be, I think, subject to grievance based on people's perspective. And so it's kind of adding an element in there again that was coming forward in that Article 23 proposal that now is finding its way into Article 2. And so do we believe that the district should be consistent and predictable in its responses? We do, but we also know that when somebody is on the receiving end of discipline, they oftentimes feel like that's not the case. They have that just cause protection, and that just cause protection has a lot of different layers in it that speak to this same sort of thing, that, a couple of elements of just cause, that we're going to be reasonable in our disciplinary responses. We're going to be consistent in how we treat employees. So I think our feeling is that that's already kind of baked into that just cause guarantee in Article 23. And so we don't see that as serving a purpose here. In definitions, I think we're looking to truly be that, definitions, without kind of adding contractual requirements through a definition. So that's why we didn't accept that one. I think we've got similar concerns on some of those other definitions. G, we just didn't know really what G was doing. I mean, it doesn't really provide much insight into what just cause is. We've got the language in Article 23 that we can't be disciplining people without just cause. So this didn't feel like it added much to the conversation. So again, we're not proposing to add that. You had some other proposed changes, I think, in like I, for example, and the I and the J. We struggled with this when we talked in Article 23, where you guys had been proposing kind of a sequential list that basically here are the things that are formal discipline in the order that they will occur in. And that's kind of found its way back in through this definition to say that a letter of direction is the first step in the disciplinary process. Oftentimes it is. Sometimes it's not. If misconduct is more significant, even if it's a first occurrence, then I think it's not accurate to say that the letter of direction is the first step in the disciplinary process, or that the letter of reprimand is the second step in the disciplinary process, because it's so dependent and variable based on what is the specific rule violation here. And so to label those things the first or the second, we feel like locks us in. It doesn't allow for that flexibility depending on the facts of a given situation. And so those are ones that we didn't adopt either. I think that those were the areas where you had proposed language here that we didn't address. Again, I like to focus on what we have found common ground on, which I think is positive, which is adding information for bargaining unit members on many of these topics that wasn't there before, which I think will be helpful for people who have questions. So that's Article 2, and I'm going fairly quickly because I know people need to get out by 2, and so I want to be mindful of that. Article 4 is kind of a mix of places where we've agreed to language that you proposed. We haven't seen this one in a while, or we haven't talked about it in a while. And so if to kind of dredge up in your memory, I think, Hannah, was there a piece higher up where we did accept the language? What's the reference to 2C? No, I'm wrong. I think it appears later. Sorry. On the full-time leave, the president or designee release, we're staying with our 3 years. Over time, we've had that discussion about wanting, it was 2 years at one point. We agreed to expand that to 3 years. And I know that there are differing interests here on, how long somebody might potentially be out in this role. Our preference is for them to circle back into their regular district employment at a period of time that's somewhat sooner than what you've proposed. But what we have added is language that you had requested with some modification here in that next section, or the next piece of that paragraph, recognizing that this is a full-time position. We say beginning in 2022-23 because of where we're at in the year. The district shall pay such employee and provide benefits commensurate with a full-time position or 8 hours a day during the period of their release. So if somebody's 6 hours a day, they go on that release, then they transition over to an 8-hour pay and benefits. The union is responsible for reimbursing that as per that next sentence. And then later in that paragraph, I think what we're looking to do is to clarify that when that period of union release time is over, and if they were not an 8-hour employee to begin with, they're moving back to their 6-hour or 6.5-hour position. And it's not a reduction in force or, a reduction in hours as defined in that article. They're just returning to their prior position. So they'll move from 8 hours back to 6 or 6.5, and without triggering any reduction in force or layoff type process. So that's why we say they're return to the number of hours commensurate with their regular position. There was a place where, can you scroll up just a little? I'm looking, there was a piece. Yeah, okay, so that was one. I think you had proposed contingent upon instead of subject to district approval, and we did agree to that. There was somewhere, Hannah, where we referred to work and non-work emails. I don't know where that appears. Is it later on? Again, our formatting, it's still a little fuzzy to me. It must be later on. Maybe we'll find it. Nope, there it is. Section C. That was a proposed add by you guys, work and non-work email addresses. So that's included in there. I believe that that's all that we were bargaining over still in that article. Looks like it. So that's Article 24.
Okay, great. We'll take a look at it. We appreciate some of the movement. We'll have to also recall that article too, because we haven't looked at it since.
It's been a while since we exchanged that one. So I had to kind of think back. The only difference we're now working on in Article 23 appears down here in this section C. You had wanted some language there that the district would notify the union when one of these meetings was going to happen. And I think that's by and large the district's practice, that the meeting notices do go to the union. We still feel like it's relevant that if somebody was just adamant, I don't want the union being involved or to know about the situation, that we feel like that should be honored. But we do want to make sure that they understand and that they have every right to avail themselves of representation, that they fully comprehend what that means. So we proposed adding, the district will provide the employee with a link to the union website. So not just if requested by the employee will allow them to get representation, but now doing something affirmative to alert them, like, here's the link to the union website, you can check this out. And hopefully for folks who aren't sure whether they want representation, don't know what that looks like, that will help kind of provide them some information to make that decision. But again, I think we still have concern. Your proposed language was up there in the first line. The district will notify the employee and union when any meeting is scheduled. And I don't think it's the majority of the times or even a significant number, but there are every once in a while somebody just does not want that information being shared out, and we feel like it's important to respect that. That's the only piece of Article 23 that we're still working on. Article 17, reduction in hours, we are proposing as current contract language. We haven't had a ton of conversation on this one. Your only proposed change, I think, was in A1B, where we talk about what's not, or in this case, I guess it's what is a reduction in force, and that's a reduction of more than 30 minutes. And you had proposed adding in there original and taking out any one contract year. And understanding the concern with that kind of gradual creep over years downward in FTE, I think our concern is tracking that from when that original total assigned work time, in some cases that may have been a decade or more in the past, and tracking that through the years and having that trigger layoffs for us feels difficult to manage. And so our current system, I know it hasn't always produced satisfactory results. People have had reductions in hours, and we've talked some about that today as well. But we feel like that it's the system that works to the best that it possibly can, and so we're proposing just current contract language there. There were no other proposed changes in that article that I'm recalling anyway. So those are the articles we were bringing back today, and also a response on each of the ones that you presented. I think that's all outstanding articles other than the economics. Unless I'm missing something.
The
Article 24.
Oh, yeah, and Article 2, I think, for definitions, right?
Oh, we presented, we gave you
that was there.
back.
Oh, okay.
What's the one what's the other one I'm missing?
Article 24 is grievances, and that's on the union side for now.
Oh, okay, great. Thanks, Hannah. I had forgotten that. So Article 24, sounds like you guys are up on that one, and that would be the only other article that's still in motion here. So that's what we brought. I think our expectation for next time would be to have a counter proposal for you on economics. The other pieces, I think we've now responded to. So I think those language things would be back on your side of the table. And hopefully we have tentative agreement on at least 2 of those, and see where it goes with Article 20, I guess.
Yeah, I'm checking out 24. We'll have something for you guys on this
Okay.
next time, I assume too.
Yeah. Oh God, I thought that we were done. Oh my Lord, not that one. I hate that.
I didn't remember that one was hanging out there either.
I was hoping it would just disappear.
Eliminated.
We're not suggesting anything. It's
strike grievance procedure.
we like Article 24.
We do. It's just a headache.
Yeah.
This part of it anyway.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll have a nice long session in person on the 30th. I think that should be good.
Yeah, I think we're slated to go from 10 to 4, and it would be wonderful. I know we all want to be finished. I sense that. I feel that for you. And I really want to say I feel like there was a lot of great discussion today, and I really appreciated I appreciated the information from the survey. I appreciated the questions that were asked, and I feel like we had really good dialogue today. And I know sometimes there's a lot of feeling that comes with it, and please know that we understand that. I understand that. And I am looking forward to being able to come back in person and for us to be able to TA some more. So it sounds like I think we got 2 more TA potentially today, which is great. And I know Hannah appreciates when we get that. She likes to see that moving, and I know Kara likes that as well. I got a sense from that. Is there anything else that we need to talk about before we close up for today?
I don't think so. We appreciate that though, Kana. Yeah, I hope everyone has a good spring break.
We have important things to discuss about the 30th. Maybe you just mentioned it and I got sidetracked. Are you guys on for lunch?
We're on for
that is
lunch.
important.
Yes, thank you, Melody.
Okay. Hey, the important small details.
Did you want to talk about the possibility of April 20th?
Oh yeah, thanks Hannah for bringing that up. So we asked Hungerford when his availability is, and the next kind of time, because he has other bargainings that he's in, is the 20th of April. And I think we tried to make that a full day as well.
The only
9 to 2.
The 20th is fine, but that's the day before that some of us would be leaving for St. Louis. So that would put us out a 3rd day from work, from the schools. Just so like Lori, myself, Kira.
Okay, is there a different day that would work better for you? I mean, right now we're bargaining every other, we're bargaining on the 19th with HEA, and then we were trying to keep it on the Wednesday because we knew.
Right. I mean, that's just a lot of days out of a school for a week. So the 20th is fine if it's, better for Brian. I'm just saying that because I don't see any other days that.
No, I apologize. I mean, it's just so it's I think one of 3 days that month that I don't have bargaining scheduled somewhere.
How about this? We'll go ahead and hold the room for the 20th, and if we need to use it, we will have at least a date, a hold on the AC 100 and 105.
Okay.
I'd like to keep that hold on there if we need to use it, and we'll have a better sense when we meet on the 30th, kind of where we're at. Because if we need to maybe it's a smaller amount of time afterwards, if we're getting close to things. We could meet, for a shorter amount of time or something like that. But if it's like a full day of bargaining, I'd like to hold.
So what, Brian, was the 13th one of them that you had not available?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I tried to do the 13th and then I said the 27th and he was already booked.
Brian, we need to book him a year in advance.
It feels like that, Melody. I'd like to have access to his calendar, but he won't share that with me.
Oh, come on.
I promise you that I'm not booking out a bunch of time with fun things. So it's bargaining on all those other.
Yeah. Oh, no, I believe you. I believe you. So
We
mean,
know
bargaining's
weather's
fun.
getting nice. The
this
weather's
is
nice.
bargaining from the beach house. That's all.
The weather's getting nice. You want to golf, don't you?
I do, Gabby. I do want to golf.
Yeah, I knew it.
Well, I hope everyone has a great spring break. I hope that you get some time to relax and just,
Yep.
I think everyone is looking forward to that. And just to really appreciate the conversation today. And I feel like it was good.
Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
we agree. Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Have a
you.
great spring break.
Yep. Have